Hey there! Welcome to the first episode in Minecraft Architects, a series made to help you level up your building skills in Minecraft. Just as a quick note, these are not tutorials, so think of them more as guides to help you along with your own process. You won't really be following step-by-step instructions, but you'll be given guidelines that will help your creative ideas. So let's just start. If you're watching this, you probably have an amazing idea in mind that you want to translate into blocks. If you do, that's great to start with, but if you don't, then you really are going to need to start there. Part of building is coming up with a purpose behind your build. So if you have a story or lore to go with the build you have in mind, it's going to be a lot easier to complete the next steps in the process. So what you should do, and what I do sometimes, is to get a notepad and just to start sketching. You should draw a basic outline of the front profile of your idea, and then you can write a little bit of lore about it. Once you have that, creative block shouldn't be a problem in the next steps. Our next step is to translate that sketch into its most basic shapes in Minecraft. As you can see here, I've blocked out the basic idea I had. When you're doing this, you can think about the overall composition. You should try to create a major focal point, or an area where you want people to look at first, or an area where you want people to focus on the most. Building the rest of your composition around emphasizing or getting people to the focal point should be your goal. There's a couple different ways you can do this, like creating leading lines, which are imaginary lines that point towards your focus area. This composition here is not the best example, but this one is. As you can see, the focal point is this major tower, and the leading lines are the pipes moving towards it, guiding your eyes to the main elements. Think of proportion too. If you want something to look smaller in your build, putting something massive next to it is a great idea, or vice versa. Remember, you do not have to go crazy here. Try to keep your composition united and balanced. Elements that are plopped down will look out of place, and ones that are too complicated will hurt your balance. Use your gut. There are more complex techniques that you can use and that you can get into as far as the composition goes, but for now this should get you past the placing down random shape stage. Now that you've got your composition, it's time to pick what your build is going to be made of. When picking your blocks, try to keep within a few colors. Pick 3 or 4 or 5 colors and try to keep all the blocks you choose within those. As you can see here, I've picked a couple of basic blocks here and then just filled in the blocks of composition with them. And they also stick with those aforementioned few basic colors. A good thing to consider when picking blocks is to think of them less as textures and more as colors. For instance, instead of using bricks as a block that you would normally use only for a stereotypical brick wall, use it as a color that you can put in a gradient or a palette. The reason for this is because as you get further and further away from a block like bricks, the more the colors of it average out into one singular tone. If you really want to create texture, you should do it in a way like I did here. But I'll touch more on that in another episode. Once you pick out your main blocks, it's time to create some color palettes and gradients. For this build in particular, I decided to go with a gradient for each surface, but that isn't necessary. Gradients are the best way to blend colors together, and they also help reduce the amount of seemingly flat surfaces on your build, but you really don't have to go all out. Gradients are an important step to creating a build, but I'll touch more on how to create them and where you should use them in our next video about color. When applying gradients, try not to be linear with them. You can radiate them in a circular pattern or start and stop them at random. I decided to use a blotchy gradient pattern for the main wall of the building here, which I think creates a more unique visual interest than just panning the gradient from left to right. Since we're finished with all the colors, we can move on to the final stage, detailing. Detailing is what's going to add these final touches to your build, and it's what's going to set it apart from other builds. Detailing mostly comes down to your knowledge of how you can use Minecraft's many different semi-solid blocks like trapdoors and fences. And when detailing, make sure to consider your options before finalizing something. Remember, there's never one way to just do something. Make sure that things are consistent and that you stick with a style. And another good tip for detailing is that you shouldn't be afraid of the debug stick or Axiom's tinker feature. So you really should just go wild with changing all the different block states and forms to get exactly what you want. And here, the debug stick is actually what allowed me to do this interesting tower window design using some walls. Make sure that you don't go too overboard with the detailing, as sometimes too much detailing will muddy the overall composition and hide too many of the careful decisions you made earlier. You don't want to work back on yourself. Remember, less is more, and empty space is okay. Here are some other ideas to consider for detailing. Instead of using a pane for a window, try using a background color such as a lamp or black concrete, and then fences and trapdoors as the lining between your new window. You can also use fences and fence gates like this to imitate small wooden beams on the sides of walls. Anvils, grindstones, and lecterns are perfect for railings and such. Also, levers and pumpkin stems can be used as a semicircle for things like lampposts and hanging pots. And just like that, I'm done with my build, and maybe you are too. Remember, this is a guide, not a tutorial, so take your own liberties and be creative. Practice is going to be your best mentor here, and even if what you made here wasn't great, next time it will be better. Developing your own style is also a crucial part of building in Minecraft. The process I outlined in this guide is just the basics. Developing your own style is changing the ideas in this guide and adding new steps. Experimenting and trying new things is ultimately what's going to build your style. But anyways, that's all for now. Make sure to check out my Patreon, which is linked down in the description, and also make sure to check out the next episode all about color, block choice, and gradients. See ya!